And we are back. I kicked it down to 720p, so should be a little better. Shouldn't hopefully my I shouldn't be getting that overload message. I'm gonna try and see if I'm coming through. I have to mute for a second. Hopefully everything is looking all right. Yeah, everything looks good. Everything looks good. So yeah, as I was saying, um, there's more than just practice to remote viewing. Practice obviously is a very, very large part of it. But a lot of people reach certain roadblocks, when it comes to, meditation, spiritual practices, things that require turning inwards and using their subjective, intuitive abilities. Some people come up against certain psychological blocks, and they could be subconscious. And, you know, a lot of these blocks that people have are actually, things that we pick up from our environments, family members, societal beliefs, things like that. We pick these up just by being in the culture, right? So you have in biology, you have a, germ culture. That's where the little dish where they grow something. You know what I mean? So um, biological culture, you have a culture that you grew in, and that has certain ideas, stigmas, and those motivate or um, you know dissuade you from going in certain directions. So most people aren't going to spend time developing ESP and Psi abilities, even if they believed it existed anyway, because what's the reward? This society doesn't reward you for those kinds of things. It basically doesn't, it's not even supposed to exist. So, you know, not a lot of people are going to spend the time and really developing these kinds of abilities. Only people who are serious about themselves, who want to actually know how deep their own awareness goes. You know, people who want to know the truth. And, most people don't want to know those things, especially when there's a million distractions now with all the technology we have. And, I'm writing about these kinds of things. I'm working on a book, stuff to publish, and it's like there's so much information being traded on the internet, being exchanged over the internet. They're measuring it in like zettabytes and stuff like that, measurements that we're not really familiar with. Um, so you can only imagine how much information is going through the consciousness network. The one that created the internet, the one that's actually using the internet, and expands beyond the internet. And we see it. Most of us perceive that as physical reality, but it actually expands beyond that as well. So we're dealing with a technology. Consciousness is a technology that, uh, you know, no pun intended, goes beyond our wildest dreams. Um, Nemanja R. What helped you the most for developing Blackboard? Do you have any tips out of protocol? Um, you know, takes a lot of practice. Basically, it took me to spend many months uh, staring into the blackness on Blackboard and not seeing anything and being frustrated. Um, So it's a trial and error type process. You really just got to draw. You got to, I made a presentation on my channel. It's called Remote Viewing: A Step Towards Realism, and in it, I'm explaining the different perceptual, let's say, perceptual biases that our left mode and right mode of perception have. So, like your left brain, so to speak, and your right brain. Um, the right mode, the what we associate with artistic ability and pattern recognition, shape, form, um, that part of the mind, uh, or the brain or the processing chain, um, it perceives specific things. So when you're looking on Blackboard, or when you're getting a um, an image in your mind's eye from your subconscious, um, a lot of the time it's gonna be presented to you in certain ways because it's being processed through that R mode of your mind. And so some of those things are lights and shadows. So brightness and darkness. So a lot of the images that I perceive, they're a play of dark and light. So it just looks like kind of like silhouettes in different shades of gray. So you have to really pay attention to the granular density when you close your eyes. When you close your eyes and you look in that darkness, it's not just black, right? There's all these different shades and different what looks like static. Uh, there's all these little patterns and things going on there. So you got to learn how to look into that and see the target image, see aspects of the target image. And so, yeah, you should check out that presentation. Contour lines, lights and shadows, um, positive forms and negative spaces and stuff like that. Those are the types of things that the R mode is going to present to you as an image a lot of the time, and to your logical mind, to the part of you that's expecting the image, your intellect, it might not accept the imagery as real or significant. So you may be looking and saying, I didn't see anything, but that's just because the part of you that is your conscious awareness, the intellect part, it doesn't accept that granular whatever it's presenting. You may not be accepting that as something legitimate enough to record. So my suggestion is to record anything. You got to really look into the darkness, and even just record patches. Like if all you see is some blob of gray and a blob of black, then just draw that. That's how it starts. You gotta set up a feedback loop with your subconscious, and you'll have those moments when you're gonna see a shape, you're gonna see an outline, you're gonna see an image, and those moments will be the ones that motivate you to continue, because there's a real channel of communication there happening with your subconscious. So hopefully that was helpful. Because yeah, you could spent a lot of time um, getting frustrated, not seeing anything. But the images are there. It's just like I said, um, you got to kind of force yourself to draw anything that comes up, any little shades and stuff like that. No problem. I was thinking of maybe playing a couple clips of some of the some of my favorite remote viewing sessions. Yeah, you could do that too. Um, and in the protocols that I use, that I'm trained in, like throughout a session, I'm maybe attempting to get some kind of visual perception. You know, 20, more than 20 times. So there's so many moments when I'm looking, 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 looking. So even if there's a moment when I look and I don't see anything, um, oh hey, what's up, Omid? Even if I don't see anything, it's like just got to keep going. But yeah, there are some days where it's just like f this, right? It doesn't happen to me as much anymore. Like these days, I almost always see something when I look. Um, it's more of what my confidence level is in it. You know what I mean? It always comes down to what are you gonna put down? You know, ideally, the perfect remote viewer records everything, right? Um, but yeah, like I was saying, let me bring this camera down. I'm reading Ingo Swan's book, which is Your Nostradamus Factor, and it's all about seeing the future, right? And we do this every month. We do that over at Crypto Viewing, and even before I was doing crypto viewing, I started trying to look forward and see upcoming world news events, and that really you know made me a much better viewer because it exposed me to so many different types of targets and stuff like that. Yeah, it's a nice keyboard, man. It's nice. Get the Windows. If you get the mouse, it comes with a USB receiver, unifying receiver that actually works a little bit better than the Bluetooth. But yeah, it's a good keyboard. But yeah, the your Nostradamus Factor. You know, in my opinion, a must read for any remote viewer, even though it's not really specifically about remote viewing. He talks about image building in here, and I'm gonna try and hop over to one of the chapters here on image building, which is basically a technique to intellectualize things and show them, make a bridge to your subconscious by intellectualizing things that are invisible. So, like your mind, like in real life, if you wanted to go somewhere new, you would probably want to find a map so you could, you know, navigate around the area and, you know, go where you need to go. So the idea here is, you got to make images, you got to build images of how you perceive the inner workings of your mind are. So like, you we have some kind of aspect that can perceive beyond time, time and space. It's not the conscious mind that does that, right? Um, if when I do world events or if you do ERV, um, sometimes impressions just come to you. You can just kind of like just open up yourself to whatever impressions to come from the target. And, there's a part of us that is intelligent and it's doing things on its own. You get what I mean? Like the part of us that sees the future, it can choose what thing to see. Like when I set my intention to see the top world news events, I'm not really picking the specific events. Some part in my mind or inside of me um, is actually selecting an event or packaging it and delivering it to me, right? And then and then I have to perceive it and record it. I could fumble that part. So it's kind of like speaking to a separate part. There's another mind in there doing something. So the idea of image building is to map out these different parts of your psyche so that your intellect knows knows what it is. Do you get what I mean? You can't work with something that you don't know. And then the subconscious, it works with images. So when you're trying to map these things out, your subconscious is going to be helping you build these images out. And so you're kind of like tying the knot between your left and right mode. So the intellectual part that's saying, hey, I want to see beyond time and space. I want to see what's going to happen next, is getting to interact with the pattern recognition, the intuitive side, the image building side, and they're communicating with each other, and that creates a bridge, and that will like activates um that mechanism, right? So it's like people have spontaneous psi experiences all the time. You can, people randomly have dreams or experiences where they see the future or have hunches, but you can harness these consciously. You can intellectualize them, and they don't have to be as elusive, right? So that's the idea um, with the image building. Do I have this book in PDF? I don't think I have it in PDF, but I can send you. Maybe I can convert it or something like that. But yeah, I'll see what I can do. Um, so let's see here. Let me scroll through here. So I'm just going to read a little bit of this here. Our intellect perceptions determine our interests, beliefs, choices of actions, and goals. All these, though, are governed by the limits of our intellect processes, which are controlling these perceptions in the first place. But we don't actually see it in this way. Instead, we speak from within our intellect limits by saying, I think thus and so, or I believe thus and so, or my realities, or my logic and reason hold this or that. We seldom consider that our thoughts, beliefs, realities, or logic and reason are limiting, largely because they seem big and correct enough to us, and because it is somewhat ego destructive to consider that they consist of limits. Our intellect awareness is built out of what we have experienced and learned, or frankly, bought into. As children, our intellects are eager for experience and information, but at a certain point, the experience and information begin to attain some kind of architecturalized form. We begin to accept what fits into this architecture and reject what does not. In this sense, then, intellects can function as closed circuits or closed loops, which accept or reject information packages that fit or do not fit with the information previously packaged into the self contained closed circuit. On average, our Nostradamus factor is not incorporated into our architecturalized intellects, and so we have not developed any intellectual pathways to deal with even its spontaneous manifestations. So, what he's basically saying here is like, we don't really know, we're not really aware of we're not really aware that of these things outside of our intellect. We like to function within our intellect. We think that's us. Like we're having all these thoughts. We're the source of all these things. But really, information is kind of like being leaked in and bleeds through from other processes, right? And the intellect becomes hardened after after your developing years. You kind of have to form your main core belief systems in life about how things go and how things are. And seeing the future is usually not one of those things that makes it um, into that mold. You know what I mean? It's gonna get rejected for the most part for most people, but we still get these spontaneous, you know, forms of it, obviously. Um, but on average, it hasn't been put into the architecture of our intellect's processes. So, you know, through remote viewing, I've been able to do that. People who practice remote viewing and become sufficient at it, yeah, that's a form of intellectualizing that part of you that can expand beyond the three-dimensional space that you find yourself in. Um, it's not really magic. It's not really hocus pocus. It's creating the interface. Consciousness is like software, so you have to like create an interface with it. Um, I'm gonna just go back to this here. But spontaneous forewarnings come from somewhere in our minds, and so we have to postulate the existence of deeper, less limited processes existing in what we call other forms of consciousness, which many assume to be greater than our limited conscious intellects. Um, the situation is particularly pertinent to the goal of building an intellect bridge to your future seeing powers, especially if the realization has set in that you possess not one but many forms of consciousness. If we illustrate these as a spectrum, we have greater, limitless forms of consciousness at one end of it, and our intellects, which may be closed circuits, at the other end. Between the two ends exist multiple intermediate forms of consciousness. Information originating in less limiting forms of consciousness must pass or be processed through these intermediate forms in order to arrive, if it can, into waking intellectual awareness. The whole of this equates to what can be called our consciousness spectrum. It is mandatory for the serious future seer to try to diagram and visualize the spectrum, but this is difficult to do because the intellect can visualize only within the limits of what it already contains, and it has great difficulty in perceiving what is outside of those limits. If, for example, you try to visualize your other forms of consciousness, all you will probably see is something equivalent to being inside of a round ball in which some nondescript images are floating aimlessly. The reason for this is that your intellect has not been provided with a literal picture of the consciousness spectrum, an absence that you can immediately correct by sketching one out for it. The figure below is provided as a hypothetical model for the spectrum. And he says, you could begin by copying it. If you copy it, you will have to use your image building right hemisphere functions. These functions will involve your autonomic nervous system in ways that are not understood in science, but the effect will be a restructuring of your intellect. So it's interesting. We know that signs and symbols rule the world. We know that, you know, things like, companies use logos to tap into the deeper parts of our awareness. You know what I mean? Brand association. When you see the Apple logo or you see the Microsoft logo, um, there's so many things that signals on a deep level. It's not just the image that you're seeing. The symbol triggers um, all these other processes deep down inside. It activates things. So the idea here is that you're gonna build images that trigger your inner processes. You're building the images that speak to your intellect about how your subconscious is formed and the routes and pathways to get inside of it. Um, what's up, Lewis, man? Probably not going to be doing any ARV tonight. I worked a whole bunch of sessions already today for work earlier. But yeah, you're building your image building to create an intellectualized map so that the conscious part of you knows what it's dealing with. It kind of seems silly, obviously the academic type mind, our like I was saying, our programmed intellects are most people are going to think that's kind of a silly idea. Um, but it's a powerful tool. So I'm gonna try and show this image a little closer. If I can get this to zoom in. Yeah. Here's that image that Ingo was talking about here. The consciousness. Let me get rid of my face. The consciousness spectrum. The intellect is the closed circuit over here. Um, Mindset barriers are these parallel lines, and then you have the the higher mind information, and he has that coming in from what he's labeling like quantum consciousness, and it's got to pass through kind of like all these intermediate forms of consciousness, and then get through your mindset barriers, and some of those, like I was saying, are not just because you're not practicing enough. Some of them are because society and your culture and things like that. So you may have to um, kind of like do some deeper work. And there's actually some interesting other exercises in here about that, about identifying certain, you know, intellectual belief system blocks that you might have, and how to diagram them out and draw them out so that you can kind of like dispel them and see what they're made out of. And that's what a lot of this is like, you know, clearing out the 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 different beliefs that would stop you from achieving the things you want to achieve, because we know that, I mean, like the first law of, remote viewing, it's like if you can get some data, if you can get any data, you can get all the data, right? So um does that mean the future is fixed? You know, I don't think the future. This is another interesting thing. Um, the future. I don't think the future is fixed. I think it's. I don't think the future. I think we live in kind of like a loop. So some people would see it like time just keeps going on into the future. I think we live in like kind of like a loop. So the future is not doesn't really go out that far. We're kind of like living in an ongoing probabilistic event horizon. But it's interesting because um, we don't really live like, a lot of people say we live in the now, and the past doesn't exist, and the future doesn't exist. Um, but we don't really live in a moment. We don't really live in the moment. That would really, a moment would be like a single frame, like a frozen frame. Um, so really, we're living in, and I don't have the exact numbers, but there's a book, The User Illusion, by Tor Norianders, and maybe I'll bring it on the next stream. But we don't actually live in real. We don't live in like what people think of as uh, the present. We actually live in like a virtual time. We actually like we have to process whatever happens. We have to process it first. So we live in more of like real time. That's what we live in. We live in something called like real time. We're processing information in real time. Um, so we've the way we've been taught about reality is just kind of like completely wrong. And that's mostly because obviously there's like a materialist type, uh, you know, the materialist belief system has kind of taken over. So we're kind of struggling to figure out, how does remote viewing work? How do these things work? Well, that's because I don't think they're that incredible. They are fascinating, but they seem impossible because of the way we see reality right now. Whereas if we change the way we see reality, it would be much more easily accepted, and you know wouldn't be maybe as stigmatized and things like that. Um, do you think that seeing the future may influence it? Sure, I think you can change. You can see something and make a change. This is this is the thing, you know, if we whether you believe in evolution or you believe in some kind of intelligent creation or design, either way, as beings, we would have developed, we would by necessity need some kind of mechanism to know what's going to happen next, to survive. It's just a fact of survival. We need to know what's going to happen next. So, um, seeing the future is, I think, the main purpose of it is to see what's going to happen so that you can make the right choice. So, um, it's kind of like it becomes a very serious philosophical and moral, ethical situation. If it's true that we can perceive the future, well, then I think, any person with two brain cells that still works and has any humanity in them would want to understand how you could do that so that you can make the right choices, right? So that you can, not that so you can be perfect or something like this, but like, so you could stop stupid things from happening. Maybe someone wouldn't have to get hurt, or someone doesn't have to die, or stupid choices don't have to be made. I think ultimately that's what our the innate ability to see the future is for. So, um, I've had precognitive dreams, and I've acted, and I think I changed what was supposed to happen because I acted on what I saw, because I recognized it. And those are good questions, and you can uh you can either give in to fate or contribute to destiny. Yeah. It's like it comes back to what I was saying about, what will your intellect accept? So people have dreams, and sometimes they just think, dreams are just the random, uh, brain fart. It's just some random thing going on in your head. Yeah, maybe some of them are like that. But then there's other dreams that are seem like an experience or seem like a message, or actually end up happening and things like that. So what, you know, it comes down to, are you aware that there's a part of you that can tell you important things about the future, and that can warn you, and that can be trying to communicate things to you? Or are you unaware of that? Because that's what it comes down to at the end of the day. Because some people have dreams their whole life and never really take anything, seriously about it. They don't record it, don't act on it, don't think it's anything significant. So that would be like, you know, someone 1,000 years ago uh, had a computer, a cell phone with the internet on it somewhere in their village, and it was just sitting there, and they're just like, oh, uh, yeah, I don't need to use that. It's just there. I don't accept what that thing says. That's kind of like what we do with our our innate abilities. We kind of ignore them, or we don't take them seriously. So all it really takes is for people to start taking these things serious. Take yourself seriously. Um, the things that you see in your dreams, I don't mean take them seriously as in, you know don't do anything crazy or stupid, but I mean, use your intellect. It's going to be your subconscious speaking to you, right? So it's like you gotta learn how it speaks. You gotta learn how to make those communications, and that's gonna open up that pathway. That's the same pathway that's used in remote viewing, and in all these different modalities of non-local perception, right? So it's about massaging that belief system, that the intellect part. Um, yeah, because I've had dreams of like accidents, and I've avoided them. Yeah, no, it's hard to fathom, but there are people that have seen very far out. So it's like that's why um I'm not, I don't need to have an explanation for these things. I can understand the fact that, this is coming from a part of the consciousness that's not um in what we would call 3D time and space. So how does it work? How is that possible? From our perspective, it seems impossible, but it happens. So I know it's possible. So, but this is why more people need to be focusing on this. This is why more people need. That would be like someone found out that you could like time travel on the internet. Everyone tomorrow, everyone would be on that website. Everyone would be downloading that app tomorrow, right? But you find out you could do it with human consciousness, and they sweep it under the carpet and classify it and stuff like that. Um, maybe I should. How long have we been going for here? About 36 minutes. Is it going all right, folks? Have I Am I boring you guys to death yet, or is this going all right? If you're enjoying it, let me know. Let me know in the chat. I'm actually working on a new website. My whole website got deleted. The feedback loop, unfortunately. My posts, my images, a lot of them got deleted. Um, but I purchased a new hosting. So I'm going to be rebuilding the website, over the next couple weeks. So it's back up. The feedback loop.info is back up. There's not anything there right now. But yeah, that'll be back up soon. Hopefully you guys are enjoying this. What's your meditation routine like? Um, you know, I don't really meditate that often. Um, I'm kind of just in a meditative state a lot. You know what I mean? Like, I take public transit um, to work and back every day. Um, I don't really meditate that much. I used to meditate a lot, but I think I'm just you create entrainments basically after a while. You should check out the book Silva Mind Control. Silva. Um, and that book talks about different ways where you can create an entrainment to get yourself into a certain brainwave state like immediately, right? So the more you do these things, the easier it is to kind of shift into those states. So I don't really have to like meditate um, to get into a really deep state. I can kind of just get there pretty fast. But that's the thing with that's the cool thing about remote viewing. Really, you don't really need to meditate if you really work the protocol. It'll bring you down, especially the protocols that I use. I mean, it's meant to basically put you to sleep. You're basically supposed to be sleeping by the end of it to go into kind of like an ERV state. So, but transcendental meditation is cool. I do that. Basically, it's like kind of like a mantra meditation where you don't use a word. You use a kind of sound, repeat a sound over and over again so that words will bring up different images in your head and stuff like that. So you want to keep absent of any type of thought or word and just kind of flood yourself with this sound. Einstein said there's no reason we should not remember the future. Yeah, true. That's what I like to think of it as like future memory, right? So what is the future? I don't know, but what we call the future can be perceived. I know that. So I've done that. Um, I was thinking of playing some clips of the remote viewing 9/11 stuff because like those are some of my favorite remote viewing videos from back when I was learning and watching like Dick and Daz and these guys work. I was just blown away because when I initially heard of remote viewing and first tried it, maybe around 2010, 2009, 2010. Um, I was thinking, I was like, uh, at some point it came around, and I was like, it would be awesome if someone made a remote viewing project. If you could remote view 9/11, I was like, that would be awesome. Like, it was just like a dream of mine. I was like, I wonder if anyone could do that. And then, years later, Farsight Institute comes out with the remote viewing 9/11 thing. I'm like, what is this? And I was just, just completely blown away by what I saw. So, I don't want this stream to go on for too long, but I will play just a little segment of a little bit of Daz's session on this. They were targeted on the object that hit the Pentagon, like what hit the Pentagon. This is one of my. This one is just. I just thought this one was awesome. Let me just go to the browser view here, and this is free on YouTube. They have this free up on YouTube. So I'm gonna play this. Let me know in the chat if the audio from the video is coming through properly and you guys can hear it.
Military-derived methodologies for many years, and both have long and publicly verified track records in projects conducted at the Farsight Institute. Let us shift our attention to the attack on the Pentagon and focus on what these remote viewing data say about what actually happened that day. First, let us look at a session done by Daz Smith as he focuses on the launch, the flight, and the impact of the object that hit the Pentagon. Again, we are primarily looking to see if this object was an airliner carrying lots of people or something else, such as a missile.
Okay, so we've got a movement, fast, abrupt, pushed, it's very speedy, propelled, it's moving forwards, thrusting. I can hear this kind of like thrusting roar.
So like for those of you, maybe who don't know or I know that for me when I was learning CRV, watching these videos really changed the way I started understanding how the flow of the data comes, you know what I mean? So you can see, it's like an ideogram, which is like stage one, right? And then you got movement, fast, abrupt, pushed. Those are like some low level, we're getting to some low level stage two data here.
As something pushes and moves forward, yeah, I can feel something propelled with great energy. Propelled, moving forward with great energy. Okay, this feels like an object which is moving. And there's air around it. A fast moving object through the air. Again, it feels pushed and propelled. Feels like it's being thrust forward and controlled. It's in an uncontrolled manner. And this feels intentional. And the object feels man-made. So this feels like a man-made object in motion being pushed forward at high speed. It feels like it's moving through air. I can just feel air around it, but air being displaced, being moved to one side as this moves forward. This object feels man-made, and it feels curved. It has a curved front to it. Shiny, maybe even white. Curved, white, shiny, man-made, moving at speed, displacing energy and movement as it moves forward with great power, great thrust. This is something that's really going at speed, trading energy behind it. And it feels like it was directed or aimed. It feels like some kind of, I have to say, it feels like some kind of missile device. It feels like it's being manipulated along a pathway by people. Okay, so let's see what else we got.
So, yeah, you got basically a missile, people controlling it. He does some pretty cool movements here. I think he goes inside the object. Yeah, right here.
And it feels hollow as well, but hollow, let me get this right, it feels hollow but with parts inside of it. So it, if I tried to draw a cross section of this, I'm not doing this very well. It's curved. This is a cross section, it's curved, but it also feels densely packed with stuff inside of it. So if you cut it in half, and seen inside, you'd see a dense material. Well, this part anyway, but there are other parts actually. It's got like compartments. Yeah, it's even got moving parts. I don't know if the AOL here an engine. So a moving man-made structure, moving at speed, directed, curved.
Yeah, so that was a bit of Daz's session there, and then I'm just gonna play a little bit of Dick Algar working the same target. And yeah, let me know what you guys think about it.
As you can see, Daz's data seem to suggest that the object hitting the Pentagon was a missile fired by military people. Interestingly, he notes that the people have darker skin and some facial hair. We need to compare these data with those obtained by Dick Algar for the same Pentagon event.
My next gestalt is going to be energy. I don't know whether to call this energy or object. I'm going to label this energy 1 because it's in motion and it's exhibiting some kind of energy. So let me.
Yeah, this is here. You know, they're showing him. So he's starting this part of the video starting from stage S4. You know, an HRVG protocol. This is where we isolate. You know, isolate a gestalt and try and look at it on Blackboard. You know, this is my favorite part of the session. Like when I'm working, S4 is that's what it's all about for me. That's where things really get exciting. And this is one of my favorite little sequences here from this documentary.
Let me look at this bad boy. There's land here, there's buildings, there's trees. Here's the land, building, trees. This is the land that I drew. Green of trees, some buildings, and then there is, I didn't draw that right. It's not curved, and it's going this way, and it's long and narrow. I don't want to say UFO, no, more like a missile airplane. It has it's glistening and it streaks, and it's just a streak across the sky. Like, man, I can't even follow it, and I'm it'd be, I think to match my awareness to this. And right now, I'm just going to call this thin, tube-like, streaking.
Yeah, S4 would, depending on how complex the target is, you'd be looking at many gestalts. So, you know, S4 can sometimes be very long. So like if there was land, you know, let's say there was multiple aspects of land. So like, let's say there was a city area and there was a rural area, there was some water, there's people, there's something in the air. Like, so those would be 5 different gestalts that you would have to look at in S4. So you would have to do this, you know, look on Blackboard for each one of those different gestalts. So it can get mentally exhausting. You know what I mean? Sometimes I'm working a target and it's like, you know, you're looking at 4, 5, 6 gestalts, and it's like, yeah, you can run out of steam if you're not kind of used to get used to that kind of mental stress or that kind of ongoing mental taxing. But you know, it helps if you're going all the way, right? Because my eventual goal is to end up in S5 where I'm kind of like sleeping. So the mental exhaustion kind of helps in the end. But yeah, S4 is a chunky task.
Sound like it's got a whine, and there's goes by with a whoosh, buzz, almost a buzzing, but high pitched, like a World War II buzz bomb cruise missile. It's not black, it's got some colors on it. It's silvery, blue, rivets, vectors, guidance, So it's not a buzz bomb because they weren't guided. This has intelligent, but it's just going straight like a bat out of hell, a rocket. So I see this thing streak over and okay, that's that. And I don't know, it's got to be involved. I'm all over the place on this, but I'm just taking these. What I'm doing is taking these gestalts one by one and looking at them, and I'm not sure how they're connected because I'm isolating each one. I looked at the structure, I looked at the land, I looked at the structure, I looked at the water, I looked at the energy or object, the streaking thing, and my next gestalt would be life vegetation. I don't feel that's important. It's just there. I don't think there's anything that significant about the vegetation. An analyst could bring me back to that, but I think humans, life, humans. So let me look at them. I got this in the paper session and I just saw it again right now. I can see it right now is now I'm seeing the streaking object or a streaking object in relation to the people. So the people are, I don't know if they're lined up, but they're bunched up. Okay, so there's people standing here, and I'm going to draw them real fast. And gestalt or the motion gestalt, I don't know if it goes through them or over them. What? Wow! It's like, okay, what was that? We didn't see that, but it was like something went by. They're looking. Shocking, fast, and they. Who are these people? They're shouting, loud voices. Their voices are loud. What do they look like? They're men and women. They're wearing. It's gonna
Forward to the. I want to forward to this part here. Some edging. You know, some people ask me about edging. There's a good little clip here of some edging, which basically is like a breathing technique to get like a flurry of visuals. This is kind of like a technique that we use in between stage 4 and stage 5. Kind of gets you on the path to the ERV state. Kind of like sets the stage for that.
take me a couple minutes to do a breathing exercise here.
Like usually when I do this, sometimes I'll see like a short video clip or you know a clear image, or sometimes even like a moving video clip. So it can get pretty intense.
This is something else totally different. I'm in a totally different place. This is not the river. It's a water. You know those movies from the 60s and 70s when they test the Polaris rocket and you see stubby. You see the thing like they launch it out of water with compressed air. So I'm seeing this stubby thing kind of burst up, and you know, like it's not going to take flight, and then so it comes up, and there's a flash, and then it like the engine ignites, and it's like it's not going to achieve flight. It comes up and just hangs there, like whoa, and then I see it ignite, and the thrust is amazing, and then it streaks off. So what I saw was this, like a launch sequence, cruise missiles, when you see them launch a Tomahawk, it doesn't look like it's whoa, 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 and then it takes off, and that's what this did. But it's stubbier than I would see a cruise missile as longer and thinner. This is a stubbier. And this is coming out of water. I've got to say, submarine launched. It's not from. This is water. Wow, where am I? Okay. This isn't the river I saw. This is a water gestalt that I didn't get in my S3. And this is a structure here that's annealing coating, rubber hyaline. It's got a, submarines have a coating like this.
Yeah, so hopefully that was interesting. Those are some of the clips that really kind of opened my eyes to how remote viewing is done in real time. Really changed the way how I approach things. So we're what are we at now? We're at an hour. We're like an hour and 3 minutes in. Hopefully, I didn't bore you guys to death. I guess I should probably wrap this up. It's around 8:30 here where I'm at. Yeah, let me know how this first stream was. Hopefully you guys found it interesting. Let me know in the comments, if there's any kind of like specific topics or things that maybe you'd like me to talk about or go over, certain books or concepts. Yeah, and we can make it happen. So yeah, thanks for watching. I'm Nyiam. My website is thefeedbackloop.info. Not much going on there right now, in the middle of updating it and stuff like that. Check me out over at patreon.com/cryptoviewing. That's where I work with, in my opinion, some of the best remote viewers around. And we look at the crypto markets, we look at woo-woo stuff, we look at the future. So hopefully this is interesting. If you can, send me a little something through the channels here on the screen. If not, your time and attention is more than enough. Thank you once again. Peace and love, y'all.